I saw a stat recently that surprised me and also didn't really surprise me at all, and that is that 44% of IT professionals already use AI in their programming, and another 34% are experimenting with it. Well, okay, yeah, IT professionals, sure. But what about non-techie folks? It's going to be a while before everybody will start using AI, right? Well, you might be surprised. After all, I can just look at my own family. Now, my mum, her favorite generative AI chatbot goes by the name of Tim, and she chats to it about recipe ideas. Tim, he came up with a mean baked enchilada recipe, I can tell you. Now, the bigger point we're making here is when we ask this type of question is, when has the technology reached a ubiquity that means even those less likely to be at the leading edge of adoption will view it as an important tool? So let's start with some perspective. And history is a great wide-angle lens. Maybe it helps to look at some technologies of the past and their span from invention to adoption to being every place and particularly critical in the workplace. And I've chosen this list because of all of these things are still used daily in many workplaces. Right, so let's begin, and we'll start with the car. Now, that was invented in 1886. It was the Benz patent motor car and was popular by the 1920s or 30s. So that's an adoption cycle of around 45 years. All right, what's next? The digital computer. That was invented in 1937. Wide adoption in the office by the 1980s, so we can say 53 years. The first email, that was sent in 1971 by Ray Tomlinson. He doesn't actually remember what it said. It was something like QWERTY UOP, the top row of the keys on a keyboard. But wider adoption was in the 80s or 90s, so we can say there the adoption cycle was something like 20 years. Now, word processing, that was invented in 1970, became popularized in the mid-80s, so we can say 10 years for that. The first cell phone was invented in 1973, and they became widely used in the mid-90s, so that's roughly 20 years. The internet's birth year is considered 1983, that's ARPANET, and it was popularized by the mid to early 90s, so around 10 years later. Oh, and the very first internet-connected smartphone, many are surprised that it was invented by IBM in 1992, the Simon. Smartphones became popularized in about 2006, so we can say that's 14 years. So with some quick calculations on my calculator, invented in the 1960s but popularized in the 70s, it's pretty easy to see and feel that the cycle of adoption of new technology in the workplace is rapidly speeding up. So will AI be critical to your job and your everyday life? Yes, and really maybe sooner than some might expect. It's probably not even fair to say that AI is particularly new either. AI properly got its start in the mid-1950s with Alan Turing's work on machine intelligence. But it's been a dependent technology on a lot of other innovations we've already focused on for it to achieve its potential that we've recently seen through things like generative AI. But the point for you to remember is that all of these technologies, they started in a smaller technology tribe before its common use in work. So AI will likely be prolific in work in a very similar way. Now, while a majority of programmers here are already writing code today with AI, just like computers and word processing and smartphones, will be considered essential to your everyday work productivity. Now, there are primarily three things that speed up the technology adoption curves. Let's have a think about what some of those are. And one of those is the ease of access to that technology. So that's number one. Now, do we need a special device? That's one of the considerations. Do others also have to have the device for it to provide value? Well, for AI, that's yes. You do need a special device, but it's just your smartphone or your laptop, so we have that covered. But there's also the ease of access to data. Our workplaces will have to make sure that AI models ingest quality data to get the output within the right parameters. So access to devices, easy. Access to quality data to train models, essential. Another thing that speeds the curve is ease of use. Now, we have to consider things like, does the user know how to access the technology and do they know how to use it? Do people need to be trained to use it? Now, as we've seen with my mum, we've seen the barrier of use dramatically decrease as more people engage with large language models through chatbots. But there will be field-based training for AI to be used as a tool in education, in healthcare, in field research, as the AI models and data that enable the best work in these fields will be different. And it will be important for us to understand the basics of how AI works so we can prompt it in ways that maximize value of its output. All right, so that's the first two. What is the third important technology adoption curve? Well, I think we can consider that one as precision. Does it need a certain tool to work? Does it do the job well? Look, calculators. Calculators would not be very popular if they hallucinated the wrong answer 20% of the time. And this is where AI has grown substantially recently, but hallucinations with large language models do remain an ongoing area of focus. But the good news is that as we engage more with these AI models, it helps to train it. So we can all play a role in making AI better just by working with it. Now, AI is already used substantially for customer service, for human resources, and for managing candidate hires, and for lots of other important work tasks. And it's coming to a workplace near you. So what can you do to learn and get better? Well, I would offer 3 points. Number one is don't be afraid. Get started. At the start of each one of these technology curves here, we've talked about there were doubters and there were slow adopters. Horseless carriages, they'll never catch on. Number two, play. As with learning any tool or technology, it helps to try it when you're not under work pressure and when you have time to make mistakes. It's also a huge amount of fun, and as we've already established, potentially quite tasty as well. And then number three, consider more structured learning. And the good news here is that we have an option for you to consider today, designed for new explorers who want to build their skills on AI. Just go to skillsbuild.org. There are no costs, and it's there to help people learn about AI. So get yourself ready for the workplace of the future, a workplace where if it's not already essential, AI will soon be commonplace. Oh, and just one more invention. The electric elevator was invented in 1880, and that was widely adopted 20 years later.